Welcome, everyone. So happy to have you join us. Just in case it's a surprise to you, this is in meeting mode versus webinar mode. So if you would like to be on camera, you are invited to do so. If you'd like to remain off camera while we're presenting, that's totally fine as well. But just wanted you to know that right off the bat. And I'm so excited to get started with you. Just a minute, we'll welcome in all of our other guests. And thank you for joining us today. Okay. Okay, thank you everybody for joining. I know we've had a couple people that just got in here. I wanted to let you know this is in meeting mode. So you do have the option to turn your camera on at any point if you would like to do so. There's no expectation that you must. And we're just so delighted to have you joining us today. Today's session is called Community Colleges and Access to Global Competence Learning Opportunities, and I'm joined by two colleagues from Fox Valley that I'll introduce in just a moment here. We'll be together for about an hour, and we'll have time for questions and comments as we kind of near the end of today's session. So if there is a topic you'd like to ask, you have options for either putting it into the chat and we'll get to it at the end, or you can unmute yourself and share your question or raise your hand, but I'll go over all of that in just a moment here too. So many of you are probably very familiar with Zoom at this point, but for any of you who are not as, using it every day in your work, here's a couple instructions. Please do rename yourself the name that you like to be called. You can also include your home country so that we know where you're coming from. I have my pronouns in there. That's an option too for you if you'd like to include those. Again, you can turn on or off your video at any time. We kind of wanted this to be more of an engaging session. So if you do want to participate on video, that's great. Again, no expectation that you do. And please do stay muted until question and dialogue time will be more designated toward the end. Share your questions or comments in the chat as we go through. And you can also react with those emojis when you hear something that you want to react with. You should be able to enable closed captions if you would like those as well. We are recording this session, but we do not allow for those AI note-taking apps to be included in this. So we'll send everyone who had registered for this the recording after the session has been complete. So AFS is a nonprofit educational organization, and we've been, putting on this entire series of webinars throughout the week in honor of international education. AFS is a global nonprofit that is focused on developing active global citizens who can contribute to a more just, peaceful, equitable, and sustainable world. And we do that through a multitude of different ways. So if you're interested in learning more about AFS, you can go to afs.org for more information. But kind of a broad overview is our work primarily is through international education programs, volunteering, educational resources, and advocacy initiatives, just as this webinar honors and celebrates International Education Week. My name is Molly Stern, and I am based in Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States. I've been working with AFS for nearly 8 years now in the Global Up manager role. So I work with all of our institutions, educational partners outside of AFS that have adopted Global Up programming to complement their courses and study abroad programs. So I'm delighted to have you here. I know we have representation from all over the world. So again, thanks for joining. I will introduce our esteemed panelists and speakers today. So first, we have Samantha Rosario, who is the Study Abroad Manager at Fox Valley Technical College in Appleton, Wisconsin. With a master's in international management and a bachelor's in international studies, as well as more than a decade in international education, Samantha Rosario is passionate about helping all students discover the world beyond the classroom. She has grown Fox Valley Technical College's short-term study abroad programs from 1 to 8 and continues to expand. Her work emphasizes world languages with a passion particularly for Spanish, cultural competence, and ensuring that students who don't typically study abroad see themselves represented in global experiences. So thank you for being here, Samantha. Next, we have Maria Carone, who has a PhD in German and Italian. She teaches languages and cultures, as well as academic writing to international students, and offers courses on intercultural relations and ethnic literature to U.S. Americans at Fox Valley Technical College. When she's not teaching, she enjoys giving lectures on intercultural sensitivity and cross-cultural communication to both traditional and non-traditional students who seek to learn how to improve their intercultural interactions with non-U.S. coworkers. So thank you for being here, Maria. Before I kick off, diving into the content, I just wanted to give you a kind of broad strokes on what our agenda includes today. So we'll look at the context of where Fox Valley Technical College is located and who the student body, typically encompasses. We'll also talk about the study abroad programs and international programs available and that have been, developed over time. We'll talk about global competence learning for students, and we'll talk about what's next for community colleges and learning. So I'll pass the mic to Samantha to start by giving us an overview of Fox Valley.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Samantha Rosario. Thank you, Molly, for the introduction. So today, just to start us off, we're going to talk a little bit about Fox Valley Technical College, which is where Dr. Maria and I work. Fox Valley Technical College, just to give you an idea, is a 2-year public college in Appleton and Oshkosh, Wisconsin in the United States. So Wisconsin is a northern U.S. state that shares a border with Canada. As you can see here on the map, we have the Great Lakes surrounding us and then Canada on our border, as well as some other states. We have over 100 years serving the community, and we offer 200 programs of associate degrees to help students get into the high-tech occupational workplaces. Every year, we serve around 45,000 to 50,000 people in our classes, and about 7,500 students are degree seeking of those. About 85% of our students attend part-time. Traditionally, they are working full-time, raising families, and other aspects in life that they are busy with. Students graduate and typically go into industries such as healthcare, transportation, and manufacturing, just to name the top 3. We also serve the business community through contract training with more than 20,000 employees a year. And some of our unique programs I like to mention are aviation, baking and pastry management, and criminal justice. So that's a little bit just to know about Fox Valley Technical College.
Thank you so much, Samantha, for that overview. Well, great. I'm trying to think if this question, we have kind of answered this one, but why don't I'll go to our next question. What types of international programs are available to Fox Valley students, and what are some of the biggest barriers to your students getting access to international programs? What have you tried to do to address those?
Yeah, so great question. So apart from the traditional college life aspect here in the United States, we offer a lot of great international education programs. We do this both for incoming students and students who are outgoing. So for example, we have international students on campus. We have study abroad programs, intercultural relations training, and cultural competence built into our curriculum. We also are happy to host 2 English language learning programs here, where one focuses on our community students who are adapting and living in the United States, and one is more of an academic pursuit to ensure that they have the language level to succeed in post-secondary degrees. So to give you an idea, in 2026, we are hosting 9 short-term faculty-led study abroad programs. Those type of programs really work well for our student body as they are sometimes full-time students, sometimes part-time with full-time jobs. So the short-term or 2 weeks or less programs work really well for those. We also host about 115 international students here from all over the world. And I would say the biggest barrier for both international education in terms of incoming students and outgoing students is the financial constraints. In the world we live in, inflation is very rampant, and that can be a very big barrier for study, one program to a next. Something I'm really very proud of with Fox Valley Technical College is that we offer over 300 scholarships through the college itself. And that is done through one application. So it very much is accessible to students for them to obtain a scholarship and get support financially to reduce this barrier. The other thing we've really worked with students on is applying to national scholarships, such as the Gilman Scholarship, if they're looking to complete a study abroad. This can really decrease significantly that financial barrier. And how we support that is by being an advocate for those programs, assisting in their scholarship writing, reviewing, and just really encouraging them to be confident to look for those financial opportunities. We are very blessed, like I said, to have 2 English programs. One of those programs is grant funded. And so we do that at no cost to the community members with our college instructors here. So great educational service for those community members at no cost, which really reduces that barrier to education. Finally, with our study abroad programs, we also do financial literacy with students. We help them with their budgeting, and we support them further with fundraising. So several different options unique to each individual situation to support them through that journey, and meeting them one-on-one with those needs to get over that barrier, because we find that that definitely is the number one barrier for our students.
Wow. Thank you so much, Samantha. I've always been impressed by the work that you're doing at Fox Valley and been fortunate to see you present at other conferences and kind of hear about your comprehensive approach to supporting students. So I'm sure those who are on the call working at community colleges or in other financially constrained organizations are also appreciating hearing about just all of the ways that you're thinking about this and helping students receive these opportunities. Thank you. Now, I'll turn to Maria for this question. As staff and faculty, how do you see global competence playing an important role in the education of students at Fox Valley Technical College?
Yes, thank you, Molly. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Maria. I'm really excited to be here with you today, connected with the rest of the world. Thank you, Molly. So yes, as Samantha very well explained, here at Fox Valley Technical College, we define education not only by what students know, but by how they apply that knowledge in their profession in a variety of environments. And in this sense, a global competence nowadays is no longer an option. It becomes a vital component of students' professional and academic, really, development. As educators, we do recognize that our graduate students will enter a workplace where cross-cultural interaction, collaboration, inclusive communication, ethical awareness are daily expectations, whether they are explicit or tacitly agreed on. And so whether students are working in healthcare, IT, manufacturing, or early childhood education, they will engage with colleagues, with clients, with communities that are shaped by global interconnectedness. And so from a faculty perspective, the global competence needs to align naturally with the learning philosophy that we here pursue and uphold at Fox Valley Technical College. For example, a nursing student that is practicing cross-cultural care in a clinical setting must be able to interpret patients' needs beyond the language barrier. In the same way, for instance, a business student that's negotiating a partnership with an overseas vendor must understand high context versus low context communication styles. Or equally, a student in criminal justice must be aware of cultural biases and its impact on community trust. All of these scenarios reveal that intercultural awareness is embedded deeply with every discipline. It is not an extra, but it has become essential. So as an instructor, I've seen how intentional reflection on cultural assumptions really transforms students over time. It transforms their learning, and it transforms their awareness and interaction with their classmates, and then at work with their colleagues and their patients and their clients. So for instance, when students learn a framework to apply a model that is called the DIVE model, and DIVE stands for describe, interpret, verify, and evaluate, they learn to pause and to think about what is happening. They begin to see to what extent and how deeply actually behavior is culturally coded rather than intentionally motivated. And this shift, this key shift from judgment to curiosity and eventually to insight, is a key learning moment that students really enjoy applying once they become aware of it, because they recognize how much it helps them improve their relationship with others. It leads to patience because we become more understanding. It leads to tolerance, and it leads to overall professional maturity. So students learn to pause in their thinking, to develop critical thinking, interpretation skills, and they become much more proficient in customer service and in cross-border collaboration. Many of our students, in addition to that, many of our students are international students. So students that they come from underrepresented or first-generation backgrounds. So this global learning approach means for them as well to validate their existing cultural capital. So when a bilingual student bridges communication between the workplace and a Spanish-speaking client, that is global competence in action that we see. When a welding student collaborates with peers from different linguistic backgrounds in a lab setting, what they're doing is they're practicing adaptability and inclusive teamwork. As a faculty, my role is to create the conditions for these intercultural encounters to become intentional learning opportunities. So by embedding global competence outcomes into my curricula, rather than just treating them as a standalone workshop, I'm making sure that every student develops these skills that go way beyond college learning, their lifelong skills. So this approach supports FETC's broader mission, which is that of cultivating not only technically skilled students and graduates, but also responsible citizens, capable of navigating the complexity of their professions with confidence and with respect for others as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maria. Even highlighting the DIVE model, I don't know if anyone on the call today is familiar with that, but that's a great tool. You can Google it. It's, all over. That's been kind of a practice for global competence and suspending judgment. And I find it still useful for me, even having worked in the field for over a decade now. And just like how quickly our brains can jump to make assumptions and judge before we have all the information available to us. So that's a great example to call out. And Maria, your comments also made me think some of our previous sessions this week have also included professionals and executives from other fields, just talking about how important it is for those entering the workforce to be able to work effectively across difference. So I think you're hitting the mark and have highlighted the importance of both inside education, but how it serves them even after they've left Fox Valley. So thank you so much for your comments there. Now, I'll turn back to Samantha for this question. If we have, other community college professionals, staff and faculty here, or like I said, other institutions that have some financial constraints or students that are financially constrained, and they're seeking ways to bring this type of learning to their institution, where do you recommend they start? And how do you get buy-in for funding the resources that you've brought in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, as we talked about earlier, with the biggest barrier for students being financial constraint, I'm sure we can all appreciate that as professionals as being a constraint in our own lives, right? But I will say, when I hear Maria speak about cultural competence, and I hear Molly, you speak about it, and how it's this ongoing process, I get very excited. I think it's absolutely applicable. I think it's absolutely interesting, and so beneficial. So I think first starting with that passion and excitement is absolutely critical. Finding that connection. I think often when we find that passion, we can find the other resources, right? If we have the passion, we can find the path to it. One of the things I would say is I have been aware of the AFS Global Up program for quite some time. And I've always been intrigued in the idea that it brings cultural competence to any individual, whether they have studied culture, they have not studied culture. And it does so in a really very good structure that is very palatable and also very cost effective. It's not very easy to hit all of those marks. And as a two-year college, we have a very big push to get students in our doors and out our doors about as fast as we can. So how can we, give them cultural competence when they have all of these other things on top of it? So I am a big advocate for the AFS Global Up program because of that, because I do think it hits all of those criterias. One thing I will say, in terms of once you find that passion and understand the program, whether it's going through a demo or going through the certification yourself and really having a good idea and understanding of it, is sharing it with colleagues, who are supportive or passionate for international education, and working together as a cohort to bring that forward as an idea. Maria and I have another colleague who is a department chair of world languages and cultures, and she has been very critical in this task as well, and a very big advocate. And thanks to working with her, we were able to strategize what is the best way to present this to leadership in a way that makes sense for them, but gets our point across. It was actually very easy because for us, the value in comparison with the cost is really quite immense for the Global Up program. We were able to incorporate this quite easily to all of our study abroad programs, because really it meets the course curriculum competencies. So it was a no-brainer, because that is the promise we make to our students to complete, and this helps us do it. And it helps us do it by being all on the same page in a way that takes that load off of the faculty and myself to ensure that we are completing, but also to allow students to do things at their own pace. In the changing educational climate we're in, we really need to be flexible to meet students where they're at. And this program really does that. So really, when we started adding up all of these reasons in the positive category, there really isn't much left to negotiate in terms of cons. I think that the biggest trigger besides that for us for getting the buy-in would be that we were able to buy a bulk amount of memberships through a special that AFS was running, and to get them at a lower rate. And that was our way to kind of start this. I will say that easy starting point quickly led to faculty members who wanted to be qualified facilitators, and who are really starting to champion this as well, and wanting to understand it and go through it themselves and feeling more confident to lead study abroad programs and be in front of classes and talk about culture competence. I think before maybe we all felt like we had an idea of what that meant, but now we had more tools to do so and speak to it, which I think was really, really a great boost for our school, and just a win-win for students and for faculty. So I would say just working with AFS has been really tremendously easy, beneficial. And I think that if you are looking for that buy-in, just really understanding that and working with them is a great way to start that.
Thank you, Samantha. I promise I did not ask her to say all of that. And I feel so lucky to hear that such kind words about our organization and the Global Up program. Yeah, I have found it to be so enlightening, even just what kind of grants are out there. And the one that Samantha is mentioning came from a credit union that wanted to support educators in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So it's like there's so many different ways out there to, get funding. And we absolutely love to partner up whenever we see something or come across that we can especially bring to community colleges as part of our, mission to make this accessible for anyone who wants it. So thank you for sharing all of that. Now I'm just curious if either of you have a favorite story to share about the impact of programs, international programs, or even, on-campus programs with students that you've experienced. It could be a virtual program or a study abroad program.
Maybe I will give Samantha a little break and share first.
Please.
Last year, I had a student who was attending my Spanish class, and also she was in nursing and my intercultural relation class, and where we use our Global Up program and the training program. And she shared a story that I found quite unique, because she was coming from two perspectives. She was learning a new language, but also applying the cultural component to it. And she said, Spanish I'm so happy I can speak Spanish now because I can mediate and avoid misunderstanding, such as when a patient has gastric discomfort and the physician tells them to take Beno, B-E-N-O, and the patient understands, why am I supposed to drink more wine? Vino? And so she has to make clear, sorry, it's not your favorite alcoholic beverage. Those are tablets that you would have to take. Or the other misunderstanding when a patient reads, take it once a day, the Spanish speaker would read once 11 times a day. So that's where she said, that's really helpful, right, for me to be there as mediator to avoid those really critical misunderstandings. But then there are moments that they're beyond this lexical level. There's a cultural component to it that cannot be mediated by words alone, that requires a knowledge of a sort of sensitivity, empathy, those soft skills, soft human skills. And she described a patient who was told by their physician to have an invasive treatment and was presented with options and with consequences and was asked for their consent. The patient, however, did not respond, and she had to check on the patient and make sure that either the consent or the disapproval would come in. After trying several times, she did exactly what she was taught through the dive method. She stopped, she paused, and she thought about the situation. She described it, what is happening, interpreted it, why is this happening, and verified the situation. Well, what's going on here? We have two types of ethnical backgrounds, an individualistic one and a group-oriented one. And then evaluated it. What do I have to do? And so instead of just asking, do you approve to this treatment or not, she just changed the way she connected with the patients. How are you feeling? Do you need to talk? Do you have any questions? So she started to establish a relationship with the patient that went beyond the mere clinical interaction. And that was key. That was key to reestablishing contact and eventually for that consent and knowing, establishing trust. And that's the relationship of trust that the Spanish speaker was missing because it's so fundamental in their culture. And I thought that was very unique because it really combines the language and the cultural component. It really shows how indispensable it is to have both the technical skills and the soft human skills in the global environment in which we live and interact.
Thank you, Maria. I love that story, or those series of stories. It's just as you said, how important it is to have not only the right words that you can communicate with patients, but also to kind of understand what they're interpreting you to say too. So thank you. Samantha, did you want to add any favorite stories of yours?
Yeah, so I think about the impactfulness of study abroad. It gives me chills to think about some of the students and really seeing them on the front end and seeing them come back. One of the groups of students we worked very, very hard with to bring more international education to is our agriculture students. It's just a group that is often not as involved in international education. And just a really great student body. I've been able to personally go on several short-term study abroads with them and witness things in person, and it just always gets to me. But a lot of those students have never been on planes. They haven't been out of the state, and it's quite terrifying for them to even consider, accepting an experience like that. So seeing them come back, and they're so much more excited about their education here because they're like, do you know, for example, they do this there, which is so different. And they're like, we do this here. And they can talk about it, comparing and contrasting. And the excitement behind their talking is just very great to hear. And here students really connect with the areas they're studying in this passionate way when they come back, right? It's just reinvigorated them. So I think seeing some of those students has been really phenomenal. And then I will tell you, we also had an experience where we had a first generation Latino student go abroad, and he called his mom every day, and he was, on the phone with her, and he's like, Mom, I'm here, I made it. And she's like, how is it? And he just started crying, and he's like, it is just so beautiful. I wish you were here to share this with me. And just thinking about what an experience that was for him and his family. And just, how he was so overwhelmed by the natural beauty, and just having made it abroad is so impactful. Some of the students, just seeing them again, their dramatic change personally, professionally, really understanding culture better is just really why I do what I do.
Ooh, both of your stories gave me goosebumps, and just to imagine, the profound impact, not only on that student, but like you said, their families, their communities, they're going to be talking about those experiences for the rest of their lives, right? I'm sure.
Yes.
That's just incredible. Thank you so much. And if you on the call also have favorite stories of how international programs or virtual programs, global competence programs have impacted your institutions, we would love to hear those afterward as well. All right. Well, my final question, I'll turn to Maria for this one, is where are we going from here? What sort of changes do you see on the horizon? Anything with AI currently impacting your work, or will it be impacting your work? Are you using AI in classes? What's next for community colleges and learning?
I have started to explore AI, and it is a component embedded in our Blackboard course show. I have seen the potential of AI. I've seen the limitation of AI. Students seem to be very enthusiastic about the scenarios that I give them. I have used it as in form of a Socratic dialogue and a role play. I give them a case scenario, and I give them a role to impersonate. So first I try to get an idea of the ethnical setup of my class, and then I give them a case scenario, and they can impersonate the role of their own ethnicity or a different ethnicity. Usually they go for their own, and then they choose who they want to interact with, where this AI role should come from. So maybe I have a student from Brazil that wants to interact with US American AI in that specific case scenario. And then I have a third AI role that is more the pedagogical, the instructor. Not me, not myself, but sort of an external voice that tries to comment on what is happening, once the communication between the Brazilian student and the AI, US American AI, goes awry, there's a miscommunication or a conflict that needs to be resolved. And so the AI would jump in and say, so what happened here? Okay, step back. What can we do? And so the student would answer and the AI would say, well, okay, let's play this out. And just being in this pretend situation is quite eye-opening to students. That would be the role play, and the Socratic dialogue is more communicatively based, but pretending to be in a situation, mostly real life, that they can connect with, relate to, becomes very empowering and pedagogically profound, right? Where you think, gosh, I never thought about it, but here I am, and I'm using this, this low versus high context communication style. I learned about it. Now I get to use it. Now I get to experience the pitfalls. Now I get to think about it, and this all develops their awareness, and that's really a very powerful feeling to be able to not only be sort of impacted passively by what is happening, but becoming proactive, being in control of the situation, being able to guide it so that it becomes a positive learning experience for both. So that has been very helpful. Limitations are it is exclusively verbal, meaning there is no face-to-face interaction. And if we know that 75% of our communication is nonverbal, of course, eye contact, smiling, for instance, is not equal in all cultures. We might connect smiling as a form of agreement, but there are cultures in which it communicates discomfort. And so those nonverbal cues, which are key also in verbal communication, are absent, of course, in online, at least for now, in the AI that we use. Yet, I think it provides an important experience that I think is key to their learning. I also have to say, when they use your training program, I always receive fantastic feedback. They do like how interactive it is. They like the colorful videos. They like the question and answer session where they have to check what did they learn. It's just so entertaining and engaging and interesting that I always receive that positive feedback. So that theoretical component plus the AI component, seem to work very well together.
Beautiful. That's so interesting. It just makes me think what a compliment to be able to work on fostering human connection skills for the, both for studying and for the workplace. And then also having this incredible moment I think we're in with technology evolving so quickly with AI and everything. So thank you for your comments there, Maria. Samantha, is there anything you're using AI with?
Yeah, so a few ways. So what Maria was mentioning in our learning system, I actually also use. I use it with our study abroad programs as a conversation piece or an AI bot that students can actually ask questions about the destination or the program they're attending. So some of the names I've come up with just to make it more friendly is Wander Wally and Slothy the Explorer. That was for the Costa Rica program. So they immediately feel at ease, right? Because it's this very nice, friendly sounding bot. And they can go in and ask the things that maybe they're not as comfortable asking in front of others, and sometimes they can be logistical questions like packing, but other times they can say, tell me what's really important to the culture of that country. Or, tell me more about the Spanish they speak there, for example. Just different things that they don't have to worry if they're phrasing it in a way that is maybe socially acceptable. And there's not a threat, right? So it's like they're chatting with a friend. And it's been really, really great for students to be able to ask questions, but also the bot asks questions back to the individual. So it's making them reflect on maybe why they're asking some of those things, whether it's that they're nervous about something or that they're not prepared maybe about an aspect. So it's kind of twofold. So that's been a really great experience here. And then just as a person with this, being a single person office for study abroad, I'm always looking for efficiency so that I can spend more time with students and helping them. So sometimes whether it's putting a communication through AI just to enhance it for neurodivergent, friendly, accessibility, different things that will really get a message across, really makes it easier to communicate with others and then be able to spend more time on things that people really need help with. So making kind of those efficiencies. And then finally, just being honest with students, as educators, we are discovering this alongside of them. We are trying to do it the ethical way, but being honest when we are using it or how we are using it, I think is a very important point for us to do as educators now for students who may be watching us and reflecting off of our actions.
Absolutely. Modeling and leading by example. That's incredible. And I love the names you've created for them. So like playful and just a
Yeah.
way to kind of test it out and see what it can do for students. And then, if it doesn't provide the most accurate information, it's also there's learning in that too about remaining, to develop those critical thinking skills and not just taking everything at face value, right? So thank you. That's really good to hear. All right. Well, we will turn to the audience now. If you have specific questions or comments, if you're working at an institution and you'd like to hear from Samantha or Maria about an idea that you have, we'll open it up. And you can use the chat to type your question, or you can simply unmute yourself and share out loud as well. Or you can use the raise your hand feature. We have a question from Sharon Cliff in the chat, and I'll read it out loud to the group. It says, are you aware of resources for program funding, grants for colleges? Go ahead.
My question to Sharon would be maybe for what type of programming first, because sometimes there are different ones, whether it's study abroad or incorporating intercultural competence. So that would be my question, is if it's a particular program. I think there are a lot out there. I know for study abroad, for example, we were an ideas grant recipient, which actually helped us restart our study abroad programs. So that's through the U.S. State Department, incorporating domestically into existing programs. Yeah, so the intercultural competence, I would say, for example, like we had mentioned when we worked with Molly and AFS with that, particular grant they were running for Wisconsin and Minnesota, that was quite impactful for us. So what I do is I like to stay connected with our partners such as AFS, study abroad partners, and just really keep my ear to the ground, because there are different programming funding throughout years that may pop up and be applicable to one way or the other. So that would be something I would consider doing. Molly, are you aware of any other resources off the top of your head?
I know another community college that we were working with in West Virginia had received a grant that required intercultural learning, and that's how they came into contact with us. And so they were like, can you, provide the intercultural learning? And then they had a first generation program where they actually did a domestic study abroad to Washington, D.C. And for many of the students, it was their first time out of their hometown or, 2-hour radius. And so I think there's just really unique things out there. And I can send an email out. I'll look that one up and see if there's resources that I can link following this session too. That's a great question. And if others on the call have ideas or other resources you've tapped into, please put them in the chat as well.
I think another way to really help with international education on your campus is forming relationship with academic areas, whether it be the deans or vice presidents of these areas. A lot of times there's a lot of funding or grants for curriculum building or incorporation. And many of these do want to feature some kind of cultural component. So some things can be done in collaboration with them to build that in. And they may look very differently, but they are often the best resources for knowing about them. And then sometimes if you can start it, for example, for one program, you can kind of really show the value to transition it to other programs.
Excellent. Any other questions or stories that you'd like to share? Comments on what you heard so far? I saw a couple laughing faces about the Vino story. That was a good one, Maria. Wonderful. Okay. Give it just another couple seconds to think. While you're thinking, I'll go to some housekeeping items as we kind of dwindle down our time together. But thank you for attending today's session. All of the participants here today will receive a digital badge acknowledging your participation. Perhaps you've already received this if you've already attended some of the other sessions, but this badge celebrates your 2025 participation in the International Education Week. And an invitation will be sent to you via Credly. And that can be posted right on your LinkedIn profile if you'd like to share it with, your followers. It also can be a printable PDF certificate that you can download. So totally up to you how social you'd want to share that. If you are able to, we would appreciate your responses of how you found this webinar to be today. So you can use that QR code with your phone, opening up the photo app, and then it will bring you right to that type form. Or you can type in that link as well. And I'll send this out again via email to all the participants that we have here today. So we really appreciate your feedback so that we know what we can do to make our offers better in the future for this International Education Week. A review of our recordings can be found here. And so we had sessions every single day this week. And like I mentioned, there's a lot on global competence. So if that is a topic that you're interested in exploring, I'll just highlight we had unpacking global competence skills for every profession. And the forum, we are really excited to have them present the impact of education abroad on career and showing that they had, so many recipients of study abroad opportunities talk about what that did for them, even in their first years after graduating college, and impacting their career. So don't miss that as well. Learn more about AFS's educational framework for active global citizenship. This is something that's also posted on our website, and we have a introductory webinar that you can view as well. And it's just a wonderful resource when you're thinking about how you might design your own global competence programs. You can view our framework and see if it kind of aligns with what you're also going for there. I see some comments in the chat. Thank you. Wonderful. And just a quick shout out that we also offer an in-person opportunity called the AFS Youth Assembly. This is an opportunity for anyone 18 years to 35 years old. And so if you're working with students that kind of fit within that age range, we would love for them to join us. It's like a mini United Nations. And especially, if you have students who maybe haven't had a study abroad opportunity, this is a truly global experience. It blows me away every year. There's representation from over 125 countries present. So it's just an incredible way to connect with the world. If you have students interested in that, it's youthassembly.org, and it will take place in Switzerland this summer. And there are lots of scholarship opportunities fully funded, so don't miss out on that, and encourage students who are interested in things like international relations, intercultural affairs, even, leadership and change making as well. So more information to come on that. And I will just conclude by thanking you for joining all of us today. You can always contact us, ve.learn@afs.org, if you'd like to, have any comments or find out more about our programs. And we look forward to seeing you in our next set of webinars next year. Thank you so much.